unmanned aircraft, also known as drones. Good evening and welcome to Newsmakers. I'm Lisa Oligas. In this edition, we look at drones. They caused quite a stir over New Jersey, but drones serve many purposes, and we will learn all about them today, including classes available here at Missouri Southern this summer and fall, insights into the mechanics and how they operate, and we hear from two people who put drones to use in business. We begin our conversation with MSSU drone course instructors Brian Jones, who is an FAA safety team representative and is a lieutenant colonel with the Civil Air Patrol, and Dr. John Messick. Gentlemen, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Sharing your knowledge. So drone education started back here in the 2019-2020 school year at Missouri Southern. Since then, the world of drones has seemed to explode with many uses, and drone technology itself, from professional to personal drones. First, I would just like you to give us an idea of how the kinds of drones that exist, how big can they be, how small can they be? I mean, there's a wide variety, correct, Brian?
Yes, it is. I have a background in the Air Force, 28 years, and then I flew commercial airlines for 18 years. And then when I retired from the commercial airlines, I realized that there are a lot of smaller aircraft out there flying that are crewed from not inside of the aircraft. So I'm basically in this for the education aspects of aviation safety. So we go from very small, this is just the aircraft. We have the control system. This is an unmanned aircraft system. And unmanned term is even going out of vogue to uncrewed vehicles, or in the terms of military flights, remotely piloted vehicles. So not just operating in the air, but on the ground and under water. You'll see a lot of military applications. This one belongs to MSSU for the courses that we'll be teaching. We will use this one. All of the other ones also belong to a personal collection. This one down here is a little bit larger, but the other aspect of the control system that exists is called the payload. The payload normally that we think of with a drone is the camera. Okay. And that is what remotely piloted vehicles are used for, is to project yourself, to take you where you can't go personally so that you can physically be there. Belly of the whale if you're Pinocchio, or to Mars. We actually do that where our own Eagle Pitcher provides the batteries for the Viking Explorer, is a remotely piloted vehicle on Mars.
So in the simplest terms, what are some of the components? They each have sort of like a fan or turbines. What are the basic components of this drone?
This is an aircraft. It operates by thrusting itself into the air. The motors turn propellers, which are airfoils, which use the force of the turning to turn the wind into a thrust, which gets them airborne. They have a control system inside that's operated by basically signals from your remote controller that you have in your hand, just like a pilot would be flying the aircraft on board. I'm remotely piloting, and that control system turns these motors into certain speeds that allow the drone to fly. Translate forward and aft, translate side to side, or yaw in those directions.
Do all drones contain a camera, typically?
No.
No.
And the aircraft can contain any potential sensing system that you want it to use, even can carry items as the payload for delivery. You have drones operating from Walmart that are delivering your meals to your doorstep.
So there can be all kinds of attachments that
Exactly.
modify them. So let's talk a little bit about how they are controlled. This is like a joystick, but Dr. Messick, you actually have done a demonstration of autonomous flight. So help me understand what that means and how you program a drone to fly.
Well, you know, the drone technology is increasing exponentially. And so there are a number of professional drones that you can program flight patterns before you take off. And then you play that program back, essentially, and the drone will fly that pattern, take the number of photographs you specify, that kind of thing. The FAA allows that, but you must be able to interrupt that autonomous flight at any point, causing the drone to land or return to the home point or something like that.
Do most drones have that kind of button where you can automatically tell it to come back home or tell it to land?
All professional drones that allow that programming of a flight pattern would have that feature where you can interrupt that.
So what is obstacle avoidance, because that's something you demonstrated as
Well,
well.
that's another technology that has come along in recent years. And drones will avoid flying into a structure. Now, they still are susceptible to hitting small wires and limbs, but a wall, a large tree, a drone will not crash into that.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
They have their own sense of being able to judge, correct?
Yes, there are sensors on the drone that cameras and or infrared sensors or other motion sensors that can see where the drone is operating. The more complex drones like this one have more sensors, and those sensors detect relative motion of things that are around them, especially immovable objects, can go down to the size of wires. Some of the Skydio drones that we operate in the Civil Air Patrol will fly actually between wires as they go out on their autonomous flight paths.
And besides these sensors, then imaging-wise, there can be thermal and infrared. Tell me about the difference between those two and how they can be utilized.
Well, this is a smaller one. Thermal and infrared would be the same. It's a sensing of a different, of a temperature differential of things, whereas the electro-optical cameras are just like your cameras here. They sense light, and we have programs that can determine what in the image it is that you want to see. In our later displays, we'll do crop analysis or the types of things that we do in search and rescue, which is thermal sensing of the differences in body temperature when we're looking for a live person.
So one of the images you had shared with me shows a deer
Yes.
in high grass, and they can detect that, correct?
That was
is
Dr.
correct.
Messick's.
The body temperature difference between the animal and the surroundings will allow you to see that deer at night or in darkness or even in daylight when, you know, there's tall vegetation and a regular camera really does not show that animal.
Yeah. How far away can a pilot be when they're, you know, flying the drone, and even if they're in the autonomous mode?
Well, the FAA does want you to maintain line of sight.
Okay.
So a drone can fly further away than that. The controls would operate that drone, but that would be in violation of FAA rules. Line of sight.
Which does bring me to my next topic. There are rules for flying drones, and they are FAA regulations. So tell us about what those rules are when it comes to becoming a drone pilot.
Well, those rules are in the interest of safety, maintaining safety in the national airspace system. And, you know, some rules, if we were going to launch a drone here on campus, we are in controlled airspace. And so that requires FAA approval, air traffic control approval. It's easy to get. Use a phone app, send the request in, and usually you get a response in much less than a minute.
Wow.
Another regulation, you'll see numbers on these drones. You have to register a drone. Those numbers are attached to the drone like a license plate on a vehicle. And flight elevation, generally limited to 400 feet in most areas.
Because we do have to worry about airspace in general.
That's right.
I mean, you don't want them flying too high. Can you lose control of a drone if it goes too high? Or are you still able to control it?
That could happen. Fortunately, it has not happened to me.
Because you're good at this.
But that is a possibility. And in our classes, we go through safety procedures to counteract that kind of thing.
May I mention that
Yeah.
the drones that are sophisticated today that operate under FAA rules have backup procedures so that if it loses its signal, in other words, a drone can only operate when it gains a signal from the remote pilot. If it loses its signal, it will go into an autonomous mode of operation. Generally, that will be hovering in place, and that's why the visual line of sight is so important in operating. And if we go beyond on a waiver from the FAA, beyond visual line of sight, there are rules that allow us to operate BVLOS beyond visual line of sight, but they're very particular about the strengths of the signal and the emergency procedures that you have to execute if your drone goes out of signal.
Okay. So what is RID equipment, remote identification? Why is this a requirement?
Well, that is a new regulation by the FAA, and it enables the air traffic control to know where drones are located in relationship to airports and other aircraft. And so all drones manufactured today have to have that built into the software. Older drones, you are required to add a remote ID module that provides that remote ID as well.
And it transmits information. It basically transmits your license plate signature and the location of the remote pilot that's operating the drone, so that people can get an app on their phone and they can see where drones are, where their operators are under the new FAA rules for remote identification.
So you're not really supposed to be you can't really hide with your drone.
You're not supposed to.
Not supposed to, yeah.
But there are a lot of people that do.
So how can someone learn where they're supposed to be able to fly their drone? I know on the Missouri Southern State campus we have what's called a FRIA. Explain what that is so people understand where and how they can fly a drone and what the rules are. What is a FRIA?
It's a FAA recognized identification area. In other words, it is part of the remote identification rules that allows us to operate in an area without having to have the remote identification equipment that wasn't built into these older drones or buy the expensive module. So it basically allows you to train in an FAA recognized area that says you don't have to have remote ID, but you can still train to certification parameters.
Yeah. Are there rules about flying over somebody's backyard? Or, I mean, that those who want to be a pilot should learn, Dr. Messick?
Well, I think part of that is being professional when you fly a drone. And in classes, we emphasize ethical behavior and being professional when you fly a drone. And it might not be illegal to fly over someone's backyard. The airspace is not owned by private individuals.
Right.
But it probably would not be appropriate unless you had permission from that landowner.
There are two levels of rules by the FAA that you can enter. Recreational users can get an idea and actually earn a certificate of a sort in the TRUST, the Recreational UAS Safety Test. Just go on the FAA.gov/UAS website and type in TRUST. And you can take the course in about 10 minutes and learn the basic rules. There's a higher level of certification, which is the Part 107 certification rules, which allows you to have an actual pilot's license, the FAA, as a remote pilot.
Since we're talking about training, let's talk about the classes that are offered here at Missouri Southern. A special short course is going to be offered this summer. Tell us about that, Brian.
That's a continuing education course. I like Dr. Will Mounce's description of that as enriching your life professionally, personally, and intellectually. But this course will take you a step further, and it actually is a course that we taught when Dr. Messick and I developed the courses originally here to the faculty so that they could earn their Part 107 certificate. I'm in this, as I mentioned, in the interest of aviation safety. You have to operate professionally, that is, learn how the drone flies, learn how to fly it, and then learn how to operate within the National Airspace System. This course will allow you to earn your certificate by teaching you those rules. And I've been in the aviation business for 55 years. Those rules are extensive because that's how all of the aircraft operate out there, and drones have to give way to all of the other aircraft.
Okay. So how can someone register for this class? Go online, typically? mssu.edu, and it's in the continuing education area?
Continuing education area.
There is a fee?
It will lead you. There is a fee associated with the course, but when you look at the opportunities available to you to enter a drone professionally, earn your license to be a remote pilot certificate, you may be investing, and we'll get into this later with some of the professionals that we have, $500 to earn $5,000 to earn $50,000 to make $1 million in a crop spraying season, for example, in the agricultural industry. And the industry worldwide is growing in uncrewed vehicle systems at a rate of about $5 billion a year.
Wow. Dr. Messick, you've been involved with the biology department, and this sounds strange, but why did our drone classes start with biology?
Well, I'm basically an ecologist, and so my interest in drones stems from the fact that drones are used a lot in environmental sampling and taking population estimates of animals and that kind of thing. And so I have no background in aviation, really. But when Brian offered his continuing ed class a few years ago, I enrolled, and it enabled me to pass that Part 107 certification exam. So it does work.
Yeah. So you had something called photogrammetry, and
Yeah.
you did an example of a hazardous waste spill.
Yeah.
So give us an idea of
Well,
how that was a helpful
That
lesson.
activity was in our certificate program for drones. We have 3 classes in that. They have the prefix SUAS for Small Unmanned Aircraft System. And so in that class, we learned some of the regulations by the FAA. We also, learn about applications for drones. And one of those was simulation of how a drone could be used in a response to a hazardous waste spill.
Okay.
And so we fly a pre-programmed pattern, stitch those photographs together with software called photogrammetry software. And from that, you can make measurements of area and distance and so forth.
All right, excellent. Well, thank you both for great information on drones. I know we have more to talk about with those who use it for business, and Civil Air Patrol uses it for searches, right, Brian?
Yes, it does, and we did a little bit about their certificate program. If you get to where you want to take courses to assist with your majors, we have a certificate program which is 9 semester hours, 3 courses of 3 semester hours each, where you learn to build a drone and fly a drone, and then to design a drone for a purpose. We've had graduates that now work in the waste management industry, water sampling, and we've had graduates that are operating now in national search and rescue all the way to saving lives.
And that class will be offered starting in the fall again?
That
We have
class
the
will be
first
offered,
class
yes, you asked one in
offered
the
this fall, yes.
Excellent. And they can find all that at their website online.
And
All right.
Civil Air Patrol is in gocivilairpatrol.com online.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Dr. Mixick. When we come back, we'll talk about drones as a business tool. They're used in emergency response, real estate, and in agricultural business. During the break, we'll hear from a farm co-op about the benefit of drone technology. We'll be back.
So coming from the Midwest, being raised here in Indiana, central Indiana, farming is such a big part of this part of the world. It's really interesting to be in a part of the industry where I get to talk to all the different age groups of customers, and just to navigate the different ways that they think and the ways that they operate. You see a lot of intermingling and a lot of helping going on from farm to farm, even when everybody's busy. This year was extremely challenging with the weather, and we had people helping other people plant, we had people helping other people put anhydrous on, and really just pouring into each other so that everyone can have success at their farm. We've always struggled to find that proper scouting mechanism to go out and add value to the farm from a scouting perspective. So with the data we receive from Taranis, we're able to visibly show that nutrient deficiency or that weed that's hard to kill. That helps drive some of the decisions that are made at the farm or that we make here at the co-op. A lot of times when we make chemical recommendations in season, the big question is there any value in that addition to the program? Customers have been very excited about the opportunity to receive this kind of data at the farm level. Feeding the world with what we do every day here and what the farmers do at the farm level every day is a large portion of what happens in the Midwest. Being a part of a local business in a community like we're in here is very important to me. They want to see the farming communities thrive so that the rest of the world can thrive as well.
Welcome back to Newsmakers, where we are talking all about drones. As you just saw, Taranis is a company providing data to farms with drones. Our next guest works for Taranis, drone pilot Clayton Woodbridge, who is also a part of the Civil Air Patrol, and Adam Blankenship with a company called Drone Vantage. Thank you both for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So there are a wide variety of applications for drones in business. Clayton, we saw the Taranis video mentioning an Indiana farm co-op. What kind of information and data can a drone supply for farmers and ag businesses? How does it identify potential threats to a crop, say?
We take and fly the drone with a high-resolution camera, and we fly different areas of the field so they get an overall look at the field at a very high resolution. Taranis on the website says with our imagery, we can count the dots on the back of a ladybug. And I previewed the imagery on, and yes, you can. First flight that we do, we're looking at emergence, which is making sure the crops actually came up so farmer knows if they need to replant the crops. After that, we go into what is called threat flights. We're looking at disease, we're looking at malnutrition, we're looking at weeds, we're looking at insect infestation. I take and fly the fields on one day, I upload the images to Tyrannus, they analyze them, and by the evening of the next day, a report is back to the farmer or the cooperative so they know what they need to do to maintain the crops.
You bet. I'm sure this makes it easier for farmers. You've got a lot of territory to cover, and to go out there in your truck and try and drive the fields would be a lot harder. Adam, drones can be used for even spraying crops too, right? So
Yes.
how does that work better than, say, a crop dusting plane, or what, is there a difference?
There's a little bit of difference. So the drones are kind of another tool in the toolbox. At this point, they're definitely not replacing the planes and helicopters or even ground rigs. But they go into a lot of areas where planes, helicopters may not want to go or can't go, with a lot of obstacles like power lines or lots of trees, odd-shaped fields that would make it a little bit more difficult for even ground rigs to go into. And so the drones can really fill that niche, whether it's cropland or utility right-of-ways or pastures.
Yeah, I mean, right-of-ways can be very steep. I know you have a video on your site that shows that. It's kind of interesting to show how the drone could get to some places where it might be very difficult. And certainly somebody on foot would have a difficult time to spray those areas.
Yes.
So with lawsuits when it comes to pesticides and cancer risk, do drones offer a safer way to apply sprays, giving a farmer some distance?
Yeah, you're definitely not out like I grew up in the quite a few years ago on open cab tractors pulling a spray trailer behind you and catching drift as you change direction into the wind or whatever. The drones, you know, you're still handling chemicals when you're doing the mixing, but you're wearing protective equipment to keep from getting into that material. So when you're actually flying and spraying, it is done at a distance. You know, you're watching the drone with your remote control controlling it, or, you know, and it's out doing its autonomous thing, and you're not having that chemical being sprayed on you.
Right. So you do have that video we mentioned about right away on your site, and it says it's steep. Is there another area where drones can offer a better option for spray, you know, besides spraying? What are some of the other uses? I know real estate can be an area. Do you utilize it there as well?
I do some real estate as well. Most of my real estate has been large land, so farms and ranches where you have several hundred acres. And you can get one perspective by driving around or walking around and getting with a camera on the ground, but it's a completely different world when you can fly it with your drone and get all kinds of different angles from, let's say, you know, 400 feet up or even 100 feet off the ground, flying down through the fields, doing, you know, photography or video. I've got another way I can even create a 3D model of a property.
Amazing. Is this something that the farm community embraced, gentlemen, or did it take some convincing, or do farmers say, hey, this is awesome technology? What's the response?
I've had a mixed response. Some of the farmers are a little reluctant to embrace the new technology, while many of the farmers welcome it with open arms. They see it as a way to more effectively and efficiently manage their crops.
Yeah. So we mentioned real estate. What are some other places where someone could take advantage of using a drone? How do you incorporate this as a business? And are you always hiring drone pilots? Is it a booming business for you?
The technology changes about like cell phones. It's just constantly, and it's evolving quite a bit right now. So I think the more uses that drones, it can be discovered for the use of drones, what they can do, I think there'll be a lot more demand for it. I know in the ag world, with the way the drones are coming along with the expanse of the technology, it's really starting to pick up a lot more. And that can be set across the board, whether it's ag or, commercial. They can, you can use a drone for going out and measuring stockpiles of dirt or, gravel in mines or even on construction sites. You've got a software where you can fly it, and then the software will take those images and can calculate the amount of, dirt or gravel that you have in that big pile.
Wow.
So there's just almost the sky's the limit for the use of drone technology.
I've seen some images where they give a tour of a home. Some new technology was coming out that I saw on one of your sites where it said that they can add high power lighting, they can add sound. So there's a lot of add-ons. Do those make a big difference to the usefulness of a drone?
Yeah, they can. They can. In law enforcement, you've got, you can put a loudspeaker or spotlight on top of the drone, so you can speak remotely with someone. Another big thing that's coming up is thermal drone use for deer location, for drone deer recovery. So that was just recently authorized for use in Missouri. Wow. And so that's starting to pick up where, somebody shoots a deer and it disappears off into the woods and they can't find it. You can call out a drone provider and they can, a lot of times within just a few minutes, find it via their thermal drone.
Excellent. All right, well, so we're getting close to our last question here. It's also used in search and rescue. Clayton, I know you've been part of the Civil Air Patrol and in some of the airport, demonstrations. Give us an idea of how helpful drones can be in that regard.
Drones are very helpful in search and rescue and in disaster response situations. There are places that manned aircraft can't get down to see in, and there's places that ground crews can't get into. One point is the hurricane in Southwest Florida in 2022, Hurricane Ian. A lot of the debris and the ships and homes were washed into the mangrove swamps. Ground teams couldn't get in, boat teams couldn't get in, manned aircraft were flying too high and too fast to see through the mangroves, whereas a drone flying at a lower and slower pace could see through the canopy, and we were able to locate several boats and homes
Wow.
that were washed in, and we actually located a victim who had been out there for 4 days.
Amazing, amazing technology. Thank you both for sharing all the information about drones and their uses in the business world. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, if you're interested in learning to fly a drone, there are classes available in continuing education. Go to mssu.edu. Thanks to all our guests, and thank you for watching Newsmakers.